Hello, History of Sexuality students. This is Professor Bowen here. I hope you're all doing well and having a good start to the beginning of the week. I wanted to just share some comments here on last week's discussion. As you may recall, in last week's discussion, we considered the idea that sex, just like sexuality, might be a social construct. By this, what we mean is that instead of being a fixed biological category that is timeless and constant throughout history, sex might be culturally conditioned. That is to say, a product of our ideas about bodily difference. That is to say, in other words, sex might be historically contingent, rooted in discourses about human nature that are created by those who claim expert knowledge over the body, for example, doctors. Having seen some examples of this from ancient Greece and early modern Europe, we can now ask questions like, how do bodies get sexed? Or in other words, how do people get sorted and situated into specific categories of sex? What kinds of discourses and institutions participate in the process of sexing? And in any particular historical era, what are the physical and or psychological characteristics of bodies that are said to be determinative of sex? And of course, how do these change over time? As we learned from last week's discussions, within Europe, the 18th and 19th centuries played host to a transition wherein male and female bodies were increasingly differentiated from each other. Once imagined as different only in degree, now increasingly they were thought to be different in kind, and in fact to be opposing things. The ascendancy of the two-sex body, as we saw, had profound consequences, not the least of which was the elevation of a phallocentric sexual culture and the corresponding devaluation of female sexual pleasure. But as some of us noted, these changes were the product of unique historical processes in Western Europe and North America. Namely, they were a result of the Enlightenment. So did the same transition happen in other places? And along with this, did the one-sex model exist outside of the West, or was it limited to this region? In an attempt to answer this question, in this lecture video, I'd like to address the question of sex differentiation in another geographical and chronological context, that is, medieval Islam. Did famous Islamic medical writers like al-Razi and Ibn Sina believe that male and female sex organs were fundamentally identical? Did they, like the ancient Greeks, argue that the female body was simply an inferior version of the male body, one with the same kinds of reproductive anatomy? When we look at the so-called Golden Age of Islam from the 8th through the 12th centuries, do we see a one-sex model, a two-sex model, or something different? Fortunately, we can answer this question because this is something that medieval Islamic doctors wrote quite a lot about. Examples of this include al-Razi's book On Coitus, al-Tabari's Paradise of Wisdom, al-Majusi's The Royal Book, and Ibn Sina's Canon of Medicine. As educated physicians who inherited much of the wisdom of the ancient Greeks, all of these doctors were familiar with Hippocratic and Galenic treatises on the subject, books like the Hippocratic text on the generating seed and the nature of the child, and Galen's book on semen. Islamic views on sex differentiation were directly influenced by these books, many of which were translated into Arabic during the 9th century. Agreeing with Hippocrates, Islamic medical writers affirmed the existence of both male and female seed, and they believed that female orgasm was essential to conception. Moreover, they argued that the sex of a fetus was determined not by the inherent nature of male and female seeds, but by circumstantial factors. Let's listen to al-Razi on this subject for just a moment. He wrote, quote, If the matter is as we have described it, it may happen in some cases that the seed of the man is very forceful and strong in transforming the seed of the female. Accordingly, it is necessary that the child born from such a seed will be very strongly masculine. If it happens, in some cases, that it is the seed of the female that possesses very great force and prevalence, then the newborn child will have the properties that are peculiar to females, which are the extreme opposites of what we have mentioned. Mostly it happens that one of the two seeds undergoes transformation between these extremes. Then, the newborn child, whether male or female, is not masculine in the extreme and not feminine in the extreme. As this passage makes clear, in medieval Islamic thought, sex differentiation did not occur on the basis of a simple male-female binary. There were multiple degrees of masculinity and femininity, and both sex and gender existed on a spectrum. In fact, theories of human reproduction were quite complex, and there was a lot of disagreement when it came to how exactly a male or female seed could exert dominance in any particular situation. Some theories, for example, were based on body temperature and ascribed great importance to the role of heat in sex differentiation. So, for example, if both seeds were hot, then a male would result. Along with this, some writers posited that what really mattered was where the seeds came from. If the male seed came from the right testicle and moved to the right horn of the uterus, for example, a male would result. On the basis of all of this, we might conclude that medieval Islamic scholars set forth a one-sex view of the body. Indeed, even writers like Ibn Sina, who tended to see male and female seed quite differently, nevertheless set forth a belief in the equivalence of male and female testicles. And all writers agreed that female orgasm was critical for conception. Ibn Sina even went so far as to insist that unless male and female ejaculated their seeds at the same time, these two seeds would not meet and pregnancy could not result. It is for this reason that his writings are filled with detailed instructions for sexually stimulating women, with foreplay and manipulation of the clitoris prior to and during penile penetration, so that orgasm occurs at the right time. In one passage, he writes, quote, "When her eyes start to redden, her breath hastens, and her speech becomes mixed, then he should send forth the sperm close to the mouth of the uterus." But despite his belief in the functional equivalence of male and female sexual organs, Ibn Sina believed that these were actually quite different, and some other of his contemporaries agreed, like the Dr. al-Majusi, who wrote, quote, "You should know that these organs in males and females are one thing, but they differ in their shape and essence. For instance, the two testicles in women are rounded and hard, and in men, elongated and soft. The sperm vessels in men are long and hard, and in women the sperm vessels are short and soft. And the penis in males is rectangular and hard, and the neck of the uterus in women is short and soft, and the clitoris in women stands in place of the prepuce in men. And in many cases, it does not appear that one sees either a one-sex or a two-sex model in these texts. Instead, there is something different, something more fluid, a continuum with infinite possibilities. Consider al-Razi's description. Quote, "If the matter with regard to this subject is as we have described it, it is possible that in some cases it happens that a male child's masculinity or a female child's femininity is extremely weak. We therefore find masculine women, as we find feminine men. Among masculine women, it may go so far that they have light menses, or none at all, and occasionally they will grow beards. This is not the only thing that may occur. Rather, when the two sperms are equivalent, and the one has little superiority over the other, hermaphroditism will occur, and a child may even be born with both penis and vulva. These different sex configurations, it should be noted, were not just abstract considerations. They were actual diagnostic categories that influenced what physicians did in their day-to-day practices. For example, feminine males, or males with weak masculinity, as al-Razi would have put it, would be susceptible to certain conditions like ubna, the hidden illness which produced severe itching in the rectum and a strong desire for anal penetration. By the same token, while physicians would typically diagnose failure to menstruate as uterine suffocation, a disease, when this happened in masculine women, it was thought to be normal, and no diagnosis or treatment would be rendered. Thus, what one sees here is a variety of anatomical and psychological outcomes. There exists within medieval Islamic sexual discourse a great diversity of fairly ambiguous sex categories. There was no sexual binary, and neither was there the same kind of one-sex model that Lacour finds for Western Europe. This also provides even yet more evidence that the natural transhistorical sexed body has simply never existed anywhere. Sex, like gender and sexuality, was and is a socially constructed thing. All right, that's all I've got to say on this question. Thanks for those of you who brought it up during the week's conversations. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'm really looking forward to our discussions as we head into week 8 of the semester. Be safe and be well, everybody. This is Professor Bowen signing out. See you later. Bye-bye.